Thanks for your patience. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. It is Monday, May 23rd at 6:38 p.m. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone in the audience this evening who is audio or video recording? If you could just raise your hand or indicate some way. And I see none. Thank you. First order of business, the first regular meeting that the board holds after the May elections is a reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. It's done annually. There's two positions, the chair position and the vice chair position. That being said, I will open the floor for nominations for the chairman position.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Lapointe.
I would nominate you to be chair.
Thank you. I would accept the nomination. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any further nominations for the chair position? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the nominations. We have one nomination before us this evening, and that is myself for chair. All in favor, say aye.
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 And I will vote aye as well. Thank you very much, everyone. I will open the nominations for the vice chair position.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Lapointe,
I would nominate Rick Ward to remain vice chair.
will you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further nominations for the position of vice chair? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the nominations. We have one nominee before us for the vice chair position, and that is Rick Ward. All in favor, say aye.
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 And the chair will vote aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Selectmen's comments and announcements. Mrs. Salter.
None at this time, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Ward.
Yes, I have a couple of things. Just want to let everyone know that the Winchendon Winds, the concert band, is having a Veterans Tribute concert on Sunday, May 29th at 2 p.m. at the Unitarian Church on Central Street. And if you've never been to those, it's very, very meaningful concerts. The other thing is, I'd like to thank Board of Health Chair Keith Kent for his efforts with Haywood Healthcare, which resulted in the town getting 500 disposable face masks and a supply of N95 model masks, and we got those free. So I just want to give him a thanks for doing that for us. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Lapointe.
I don't think so.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. And I have nothing at the moment. Are there any public comments or announcements this evening? Moving on, we have some appointments and resignations. Under Council on Aging, we do have a resignation. Gloria LeBrac has been on there for quite a while, and she is stepping down. If there's no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I move the Board of Selectmen accept the resignation of Gloria LeBrac from the Council on Aging and thank her for her many years of support to the elders of this community.
Second.
Thank you. Made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And the chair will vote aye. Again, with a huge thank you. Then we have two appointments. The first on Council of Aging appointment is Lynn Murray. In your Dropbox is a note from Judy Measure accepting, asking that we confirm that Lynn Murray. If there are no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Lynn Murray to the Council on Aging with a term expiration of June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye. And then we also have a second appointment to the Council on Aging, Anne Marie Smith. Again, Judy's letter indicates that they would welcome her. If there's no discussion, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
I
Ward,
move the Board of Selectmen appoint Anne Mary Smith to the Council on Aging with a term expiration of June 30th, 2023.
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And thank you, everyone, for stepping forward. I should have held that for the next one. We have a Recreation Commission middle school student appointment from Emily Croto. Included in our packet is a letter from Emily.
Is that?
Are you Emily? Would you care to come forward for a moment? Good evening.
Good evening.
So, why are you interested in being appointed to the Recreation Commission?
I'm interested because I've always been interested in community work, and I think this is a great stepping off point for a successful future.
Very good. Looks like your grades are great. Athlete, yearbook committee, and you're part of the youth group?
Yes.
Very good. Change maker. Questions for Ms. Croto? Questions, comments?
No questions, but just thank you. Thank you so much for stepping up and taking part and taking pride in the community and being a leader to your peers. I think it's great.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
If there are no further questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move the Board of Selectmen appoint Emily Croto to the Recreation Commission's middle school student appointment.
Second.
thank you. Made and seconded to approve the appointment. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
I just have to point out the proud dad hiding his smile the whole time over there. Good job, Dad.
Next, permits and applications. We have a request for a special one-day wine and malt beverage license, June 24th, for the Winchton's Battle of the Bands. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
For the
Thank you
record,
for having me.
if for the record, please state your name.
Jim Hunt, Bullspit Brewing Company.
So, what have you got brewing?
A lot actually. So, but we're excited to be invited to the first food truck festival here. So this is our application to be able to serve some of our products and wines at the event.
Very good. And it's June 24th, 2022, from 5 to 9. All the paperwork looks in order. This is going to be at the GAR Park. Any questions or comments for Mr. Hunt?
I think that map has been updated since me submitting the application.
Okay. What's changed on it? You know? Hi.
Hi, not too much has changed. I did send in a couple updates because we have a layout for if it rains, because we can't have so much stuff on the lawn if it rains, and the layout is if it doesn't rain, that would be our preferred layout. Okay. So this is close to the one as if it doesn't rain. Bullspit will kind of be centered towards the band, and that part of food trucks you have highlighted there actually will not be there. Okay. And that's similar to what it would look like. Bullspits will actually, the roped off area will just come down to encompass the area where the bands are in front there. And that one is the rain, if it rains, Bullspit will be off to that side there and have a roped off area over there.
The grass, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And for the record, please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Tiffany Newton, part of the Recreation Commission.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? I see the only department head was from Chief Walsh, just indicating to make sure that you have proper police details available. I'll open up to the board. No, if there are no questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve the special one-day malt license to Jim Hunt for the Battle of the Bands food truck event to be held at Gar Park on June 24th, 2022, as presented this evening.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the application. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye,
Aye.
and the chair will vote aye.
Wonderful.
Thanks for all
Thank
your
you.
hard work.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tiffany. Next, we have an application for the Max Performance 16th Annual Massachusetts State Triathlon. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Tim Richmond with Max Performance. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, when I saw this on the agenda, I would have sworn that you were here just like 3 or 4 months ago.
Feels
I can't
like it,
believe
right,
it's been
sometimes?
a year. Tell us anything new this year?
Yeah, we're back for the 16th annual. It's hard to imagine that it's been 16 years since we came to Winchendon. So we're back. Everything is hosted out of Lake Denison Recreation Area. And we have our swim bike run. It's an Olympic distance triathlon. And everything kicks off at 8 o'clock on Sunday, July 10th. And we should expect around 400 athletes. And we'll see folks from around the Northeast region coming out. We're excited to welcome athletes, and as well as some of a lot of our volunteer partnerships and programs that have really included the Murdoch School, which has really been great partnerships for at least 3 different teams. Most notably, the cross country and Coach Findlay have been very helpful over the years. Anthony's been a great supporter from start to finish. So we thank them for their support. We're also hosting a safe, responsible offering that we've been doing, I think, for maybe about 5 years for the beer tent offering, which athletes receive tickets for accountability as part of their entry into the event, and we track that. And this year's provider is Moon Hill Brewing, and so we'll be working with them again this year. So yeah, it's shaping up really nicely. So we're definitely very excited. But let me know if there's any questions that anybody has. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. I'll open it up to the board for questions or comments.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I just want to thank you for your organizational skills. This event, year after year, is run perfectly. I mean,
Thank you.
There's hardly ever been a problem.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that type of organization going on.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And just thank you for continuing to come to Winchendon for it. That's huge for us, and
Yeah,
I'm
thank
very
you.
appreciative.
Thank you.
Anything further on the road race cycling permit? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I move the Board of Selectmen approve the road race cycling permit for Max Performance for the 16th Annual Massachusetts State Triathlon to be hosted at Lake Denison on Sunday, July 10th, 2022, as presented this evening.
Second.
Thank you. Made and seconded to approve the request. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And then we also have a request for two special one-day malt beverage alcohol licenses. As Tim mentioned, it's not going to
Exactly,
be for
yeah.
sale, it's just for
And the reason that we have the 2 one-days is because for an organizational standpoint, we need to take and receive the delivery on Saturday evening, and then we'll have either an environmental police officer on site detailed, or Winchendon Police will be there to make sure everything is safe and secure. So that's the reason for the 2 instead of just 1 for the morning or the mid-morning of, yeah.
Yep, sounds good. They'll have tip certified personnel. Everything looks in order. Any questions or comments from the board? If there are none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I move to approve the 2 special one-day malt liquor licenses to Tim Richmond of Max Performance for Saturday, July 9th and Sunday, July 10th for the 16th Annual Massachusetts State Triathlon to be hosted at Lake Dennison as presented this evening.
Second?
Thank you. Made and seconded to approve the request. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And the chair votes aye.
I'm a no.
I beg your pardon.
I'm a no.
Amy's always a no on this one.
Yes, yeah. Just strictly because I love Lake Dennison, camper down there, and I just don't think the beer has to be there, just personally.
Sure.
Thank you. My apologies to Mrs. Salter for cutting her off. All right, it does pass 4 to 1. All right. Thank you so much,
Very good.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have an application for Piper's Mobile Kitchens, LLC. Is there someone here this evening to
It's
speak to
actually-
this?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
he's actually sick this evening, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to
Okay.
pass over for this.
All
Do we
right.
want to pass over it, or can we just approve it? Pass over it?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to pass over this item.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made to pass this over. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and the chair will vote aye. Oh, I hope he feels better. We have no boards, commissions, committee departments reports this evening. Next on our list, under new business, we have about 4 minutes before 7 o'clock.
Would you like a motion for a recess?
Yeah.
I would make a motion for a recess till 7 o'clock.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in recess until 7 p.m. We about ready, gentlemen? Okay. I would like to call back to order at 7 p.m. this meeting of the Winchton Board of Selectmen. All right, on our agenda, we have a community outreach meeting for a proposed adult-use retail marijuana establishment and cultivation, manufacturing, and transport facility to be located at 703 School Street by Izapa Stella 5. Mr. Sosbeck, if you could give a little background about the location?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. As I'm sure you're aware, there's already a host community agreement in place for 703 School Street under Not Your Grandpa's Tobacco.
Excuse me, I forgot to read the legal notice.
Oh, would you like to?
I would like to read this into the record.
Please.
My apologies, everyone. Notice is hereby given that a community outreach meeting for a proposed marijuana establishment is scheduled for May 23rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Winchton Town Hall at 109 Front Street. The proposed adult-use retail marijuana establishment and cultivation, manufacturing, and transport facility is anticipated to be located at 703 School Street. Any person wishing to participate or provide comment is strongly encouraged to attend, where there will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions. Reasonable accommodation will be attempted upon written request to the Selectmen's office prior to the meeting. The room meeting is accessible to persons with disabilities via the Winchton Board of Selectmen, 978-297-0085, publication date 5/9/2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 703 School Street, there's already a host community agreement in place under Not Your Grandpa's Tobacco. It was last revisited about a year ago now at this point. At this time, there aren't any substantial changes to the proposed business plan, but there is proposed change to the ownership. And so I felt it would make sense, given a large component of the host community agreement and this board giving authorization is the feel that you get for the ownership and leadership team of the organization intending to go in that place. And so before you this evening, we have Izapa Stella 5 and their team who are going to walk you through a presentation, tell you a little bit about themselves, what their intention is, why they chose to be in Winchendon or choosing to be in Winchendon, and it will provide an opportunity for the general public and for this board to get a better idea of what this change would possibly entail.
Thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Board of Selectmen, for seeing us. My name is Nicholas Mortellaro. I'm a chemical engineer and advisor to the team. I'm going to be hosting and presenting the meeting today. I'll ask if you guys have any questions, if it's agreeable to hold them to the end, as we might answer them later in the presentation. My associates are going to make notes of any hands that go up, so please feel to raise your hand. We will absolutely cycle back and get those questions answered, because that's the most important part of really this update to you guys, just about our plans for the future and for this site.
And I will note that this presentation may deviate a little bit from what was available in your packet. We just received it.
Okay. Thank you.
So Izapa Stella 5, hereby the company, is a local and minority-owned cannabis company committed to dispensing consistent, high-quality, tested cannabis, cannabis and cannabis-derived products for both adult and medical use. We're going to DBA as Izapa Stella 5, so that will be the name, replacing Not Your Grandpa's Tobacco. We will have a variety of cannabis strains, extractions, and infused products, and all of this will be in accordance with the state laws and regulations. Our leadership has a diverse set of talents to operate cultivation, manufacturing, distro delivery, and the retail license. We are a craft cannabis operator. We are not corporate. We're not backed by any out-of-state groups. This is us. You are in the room now with the owners and operators. We're looking to have locally sourced craft cannabis, and we are recipients of the state social equity program, which was set up by the Cannabis Control Commission to help economically disadvantaged social equity applicants get through the legal licensing process. We, on our team, have biotech research professionals, as well as very experienced business people to help see this through to success. I myself am a chemical engineer. I come from the pharma world. This is a regulated product, and we'll treat it as such. So the proposed establishment, again, is the same site. All licenses will be co-located at 307 School. The building will use what is currently an underused parcel. The total site is 5 acres. All of our operations will take place inside that structure. Our proposed hours of operation are 8 to 8, and the sales floor that is accessible to customers will be about 2,500 feet. All products will be in locked display cases behind the counter or in storage vaults, as well as all products will be in storage vaults overnight. In accordance with the CCC's regulations, this is not within 500 feet of a public or private school or any institution providing education, kindergarten K through 12. This is the proposed site layout for the retail portion, which will be the only portion accessible to the public. Again, adults over the age of 21 that present ID. We are going through the state process now. It is a lengthy process. We appreciate your cooperation as we go through that process. This is just the start of that process. You guys will be able to confirm our compliance with all municipal rules and regulations before we get our state license, and even afterward there are several checks with the state to ensure that we're complying and everyone's communicating and we're on the same page. So this is really the start of that process. This is how we propose the site to look at the end. In short, we want to be sure that there's security, an ID is presented before the security door is opened and clients are buzzed in to be able to actually access the dispensary floor. Without presenting a valid scannable ID, no individual will be able to access the dispensing floor. There'll be a separate vault, a separate secure server room, and separate entrances, exits, and security for staff. Just a bit about, of course, our sales. Only consumers 21 years of age with a valid government-issued photo ID will be allowed to enter. Medical patients under the age of 21 can only be admitted with a valid patient ID card. They'll have the option for sales by appointment, pre-order, delivery, and curbside pickup to help improve the purchasing experience, enhance convenience, and cut down on any traffic or congestion. Consumers will be provided with education on proper dosing, the effects of different strains, accessories, behavior to avoid, and safety associated with these products. We've got a robust educational and safety program in this state that will be leveraging their literature and materials. Our products will be obtained only from other licensed establishments in the state or in-house, and all products will be third-party tested by an independent testing lab, both for their cannabinoid content and contaminants. All products will be sold in plain, resealable, tamper and child-resistant packaging that is labeled according with state regulations. We will not sell more than 1 ounce of dried flour or 5 grams of concentrate to a consumer per transaction. No products will be available for sale that contain nicotine or alcohol. Educational materials will range on topics, but will include side effects, method of administration, dosage, and substance abuse. A bit about our cultivation and manufacturing side, the production side of the business. We'll be using proprietary cultivation techniques to produce some of the best cannabis in the state. All products will be tested, and all in situ products, not only final products, but products in various stages, will be tested for biological and chemical contaminants. The environmental media we'll be using is rock wool and water. It's been used for contaminants successfully by many operators in the state. We will eventually open up a lab at the same site to produce infused products. edible products and beverages. These will be prepared, handled, and stored in accordance with good manufacturing practices, GMP, and those set requirements for food handling, including food-grade stainless steel tables, packaging, and SOPs, standard operating procedures, that all of our employees will be trained in. Flour, concentrates, extract, and edible materials will all be packaged and labeled in accordance with the CCC's regulations. A bit about security on the site. We can furnish this board with a full security plan. For purposes of security, we're not sharing the details of that plan in this meeting, but I'm going to go over the major points. We will contract with an independent professional security firm to design and implement and monitor our security plan to ensure a safe environment both for customers and our employees. The state-of-the-art system will include perimeter alarms, exit and entry point alarms, and means to contact local PD in the case of any event. The system also has a failure notification system that will alert the executive management team, local PD, and will have a backup alarm system if any failure of the original system occurs. This will include interior and exterior HD surveillance, which will be backed up to the cloud. So even if servers are destroyed on site, that video feed will be safe and kept on file in perpetuity. The exterior of the facility will be well lit, minimized of any foliage so that there's good visibility. Only our registered employees and agents will be authorized to access the back of house of the facility, and a visitor log will be kept for that. All agents and visitors will be required to display ID. The use and on-site consumption of any cannabis products of any kind is prohibited, and we are going to be working in close cooperation with Winchendon PD to ensure that we've got good oversight of the area when needed. This is a little bit about the warning labels and packaging. This block, capital text, will be on all products as mandated by the state. We'll use the state-of-the-art and industry standard child-proofing and tamper-proof packaging. This is a bit about prevention of diversion to minors. As per the state's regulation, we will not engage in the dispensing, advertising, or marketing of any products to minors. That includes our website. That includes anything visible and accessible from the street. It includes any marketing materials, education materials, as well as our hiring. Nuisance prevention. We want to be good neighbors. That's what we're here to do, is be good neighbors and provide jobs and income to the community. So we want our presence here to be a reflection of that. All of our staff and security personnel will have rigorous training to ensure that the standard operating procedures that we submit to the state are upheld and practiced at all times. That includes on-site safety, transportation, storage, prevention of diversion, and any kind of nuisance behavior. All customers, when they first come with us, and we have a state-of-the-art customer management software, when they come in, when their IDs are scanned, if it's their first time, we'll ask them to sign a good stewardship agreement, which confirms their understanding of the laws here in Massachusetts around public consumption, transport, and behaviors that will not be tolerated at the site. If a patron refuses to follow the good stewardship agreement they themselves have signed, their access to be a customer with us in the future can be revoked. Any disturbance of the peace, loitering, littering, consumption of marijuana will not be tolerated, and they can have their privileges again revoked. Our direct contact information will be provided to you guys, local PD, so that we're accessible, and if any issues come up, which so far in the state they have been very safe and haven't, you can get to us at any time. A bit about traffic and parking. We're shooting to have the hours kind of go off-peak Most of our hours are after most shops are closed. There's ample parking on site, up to 80 spaces. So in all the sites that I've seen, this is one of the best located in terms of accessibility, traffic, and again, that pre-order appointments and delivery should enhance the overall convenience, cut down on any traffic. And then finally, our positive impact plan, which should be the most important to you guys. It centers around, 5 basic pillars and tenets. One is the jobs. This is a large site. These are great jobs. We pay, well above minimum wage into living wages. And we're also looking to implement a employee stock program. So every employee from day one will be earning ownership in the company. There's, of course, monetary benefits to the town in the form of our tax revenues, all the property taxes. We're making major capital improvements to this site that greatly increases the value of that site even after, even beyond our operations. There's an additional home option tax of 3%, so there should be great benefits to the town in order you guys to do as you will, build a bike path, improve local communities as you guys see fit. This also gets access to regulated quality products for the patrons here. The issue we have in the state is that these products are accessible today to minors, to anyone without regulation at very cheap prices and dubious quality. So we're looking to fix that, change that, and ensure that you guys have control over the products and who they go to. Finally, we're looking to be involved in the community. We do need to submit a formal positive impact plan to the state, and we're looking for your input on how we can be good citizens, good neighbors, and how we can help out in a way that makes sense for the town. This is just a bit about the next steps from this meeting onward. This is, again, like I said, the start of the process. Once we complete this meeting, we will send our formal application into the state, which includes a record of this meeting. We will then get provisional licenses from the state. The one for the retail license has already been issued. But that provisional license really only allows us to build out the site. Then, once the site is fully built, auditors from the state's Cannabis Control Commission will come, do a post-provisional licensing inspection, validate that all of our SOPs, all of our site has been built out to the specs that we submitted, ensure that everything is in compliance. Then and only then will we receive a final license. From there, we staff up, we can get our metric tags, which is the state's seed-to-sale tracking software, and we will continue to be audited with surprise inspections from state regulators as they see fit. And that's all. Sorry about that. That's all we have. If you guys have any questions, this is your floor, and we'd love any feedback.
Thank you very much. I will open it up to the Board of Selectmen.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward.
I'm looking at the first pass, I guess, of slides we received, and this one's a little bit different. On the jobs on the original one we received, it said you would eventually create 15 to 25 well-paying jobs. Now it's 65 to 75. What brought that change?
Yeah, so in the original application, I think it was cited for cultivation and retail.
Okay.
What has changed during that time is the market as well. And as processes get updated, one of the best ways to keep up with that demand on the operations side is additional staff. So that reflects both the additional licenses, product manufacturing and transportation, as well as updated SOPs that are really, industry standard at this point.
And my other question, and you probably covered this, but I missed it. So the existing building that's out there right now, are you going to use that, remodel it?
Correct. Yep.
And are you going to be building any new buildings?
Not at this time.
Okay, so you're using the existing building.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson?
I do have questions. If you go back to, I think it was your first slide, maybe your second one, and the idea, I think I was a little confused, but your craft SE, I wrote down. It sounded to me like you're almost subletting out to other cultivators. Is that?
Nope, so you're in the room now with both the owners and operators. Social equity is an official state designation, a program that you must apply for, get approval for, and with it comes expedited review at the state level.
That's the, okay, yeah.
Yes, that's the social equity program, which is a formal state. Craft cannabis is a, industry term nomenclature for differentiating between something that's locally grown versus a corporate cannabis
So
company.
you are a SE certificate holder. You wouldn't be subletting out to different ones under your umbrella, is that
That's correct. We're not able to do that legally, so we
That
are
had me very
We
confused.
would be the owners and operators.
Perfect,
Isaac
okay.
Stahl, one of the owner-operators.
Thank you. And then I had a question on clearing. You said you were going to be clearing some of the vegetation. And so I was a little concerned with that, wondering how much you were going to clear, because you do have 5 acres down there. And I really kind of thought it was a great place for you. Not a lot of neighbors. It's right on the main road. There's a whole lot of pluses, but if you go clearing a whole lot of forest, I'm going to get a little bit concerned.
Of course. I believe our intention is only to clear the brush vegetation around the building.
Around the building?
Yeah.
Just to the tree line. I don't think we're taking out any trees.
Yeah, we're not gonna be expanding into the woods or back in there, trying to cut those tree lines that separate us from the other properties.
Okay.
But around the building, there's a lot of debris and shrubs
Sure.
and things, and we're gonna wanna clean up all that and allow it for cleaner access and better security.
Definitely, but I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I'm a tree lover. I'm not gonna wanna, arbitrarily cut down trees, for sure.
Great. And then I think the last question is just, I don't know, it's a weird question, but, when you were going through like your edibles, and I don't know, I just kind of personally wondered, like if somebody were to buy, I don't even know how you sell them, like a bag of them, and they, like gummy bears. In my head, they're like gummy bears, where like if you sat down and watched TV and you're gonna have, you think you're only gonna have 2, but you end up having 20. I mean, come on.
Sure.
Because they're gummy bears. Is there any way to, like, and somebody wouldn't realize they'd had way too many until,
Of course.
too late?
Yeah, one of the keys to that, first of all, is education. So all of our products will have start low, go slow. You start at a low dosage, go slowly over time. We all have a friend or a story about how someone took an edible, didn't kick in, and then it kicked in much later after they had more. So all of our information will be accessible there. I personally, as a chemical engineer, am very excited about a process called nano-emulsification, which allows that cannabis oil to be more bioavailable to the body. So rather than kicking in an hour or an hour and a half, you could get the effect within 5 to 15 minutes. So much more receptive, knowing how your body is feeling. The other side to that is that these products will be, edible products in this case, individually packaged in 5 milligram doses at most.
So you can't like just dive into the
You
little
won't
bag
just
of
have
gummy
a
bears?
whole giant thing where you won't be noticing what you're doing.
Right.
Now, they may be effective, and you may not realize what you're doing based on some of the effects, but they'll be clearly labeled and separated. So if you have a few, you would know if you're gonna open another package and have another one.
Right, it's not as easy as just reaching in the one bag and pulling out 20
Exactly.
of them.
Everything's individually done. And then part of the stewardship that we have them sign in the education allows them to be informed of how to responsibly use it. And it would be what to do if, who to contact, and how to
like you said, you know, low and slow. It's how you start it.
Okay.
For
Thank you.
adults over the age of 21, you'll know if you're over imbibing.
Yeah,
Certainly
and
not.
those are really small doses too.
Okay.
So it's not, you're not getting mass quantities. That's actually part of the safety of going through the legal market, is that it's a much lower dose for the safety reason. So on the black market, or what might be out there otherwise, is something less safe and more likely to be abused than anything that comes through our dispensary.
Thank you.
And sir, for the record, please state your name.
Isaac Stahl, co-owner operator.
Thank you. Mrs. Lapointe?
Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you guys for presenting. If you saw me typing and not listening, I was listening, but I was doing a little background research because that's what I'm doing. What I do, I'm a pain in the butt like that. But so my first question is really just out of curiosity. Is your name selected? Is it something to do with that tree of life in the Mayan culture?
Yeah.
It is, yes. Actually, I think the very last slide of this presentation explains that a little bit.
Are any of you from there? I'm just curious. That's really neat. I like that. I'm just curious kind of how that came to be.
Yeah, so I myself am Hispanic, but Tola is our marketing director.
Yeah,
And all the branding is him.
Yeah, and he actually came up with that, and then when he told me what it meant, and I looked it up, I thought it was fantastic and something that we could use. And the Tree of Life, working with our own thoughts about how this is something medicinal and beneficial for society, and trying to do things sustainably.
That's cool.
Yeah, and an alternative to pharmaceuticals and some other things like that, for something in line lifestyle-wise with the Tree of Life.
Cool. LinkedIn profiles, you guys look very established and knowledgeable. Kudos to you. It looks like you're headquartered in Haverhill. Is that still accurate?
That's my consulting company.
That Evocana?
That's right.
And that's different from this? I thought I saw that in the presentation, or no, did I see that somewhere here?
Correct.
Is Evocana separate from?
Yes, that's just
Oh,
my
okay, I'm
personal
sorry.
consulting company.
Awesome. So then I was looking up the wrong stuff because I thought I saw that you had a community host agreement in Ashburnham?
Yep.
But that's different from this?
That's another project that I've worked on, yes.
Oh, so how many facilities do you have, or are you looking to have through all the different, because it all seems related to the cannabis industry, right?
Correct. So I've worked with a dozen applicants in the state so far. Evocana is the only one that I have equity in, besides this one. So there's a limit, a statewide limit for 3 of each license class. For me, this would represent maybe 2 cultivation, 2 product manufacturing, and 2 transportation. But for the most part, I simply work on these projects as a consultant, help get them through the process, specifically social equity applicants. That is my area that I really like to focus in.
Very broad vision. Kudos.
And he's been helping us secure our license and go through this process.
Awesome. And this is the John and Carrie's Furniture location?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It used to be the auction house many, many, many years ago.
I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate the research.
Mm-hmm.
You had indicated that your retail space was going to be about 2,500 square feet. What are you looking at for manufacturing space and cultivation space?
Yeah, so manufacturing is about 5,000, depending on what processes we use and how far we go with it. The simplest is oils, which can be a tincture or a vape, all the way to edibles, beverages, and you can get as fancy with it as you want in terms of edibles. The cultivation space we're looking at, so we've got one area which is about 7,500, and then another area that's 6,500, for a total of about 14,000 square feet of cultivation space. That represents about 10,000 square feet of flowering canopy, which is how we're regulated on the state level, which is flowering plants.
Right. Okay. And this is all within that one building?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think
Madam
that was...
Chair,
Yes, Mrs.
just
Lapointe.
I have one other question, which I forgot to ask. I'm sorry, and I'm not sure if that would be more for you guys or more for the town manager. What happened with the change? What, the one company that was going to do this, it didn't work out. Is there a backstory to that?
Sure, so I can't speak to the change specifically, but I was looking for a good opening to throw a disclosure out there. So I think this is the time. Thank you. Alley-oop. So just for the record, our administrative assistant in the Planning and Community Development Office, Tiffany Newton, has a family connection to this property, the current owners of the property. That's going to be sold to the group that we have here before us, potentially. Prior to Ms. Newton's employment, the board had already approved an HCA for the location. So it's not a factor. And it was also made clear before she started with the town that should any item involving this property for cannabis use roll through the offices, that it doesn't go through her, it goes through Nicole Roberts. So we put up a little bit of a preemptive firewall there, but if anybody had any questions about it, we just wanted to disclose that. In terms of the history of why they're looking to sell, I would open the floor to somebody else on that one.
I can say for myself, it's very common in this industry. It's a very long process at both the local and state level. There's a lot of checks, a lot of balances, a lot of regulations. So it's very common for one applicant to start the process, another, sometimes more experienced operator, to finish it and take it all the way to operations. Just part of the kind of startup project life cycle that I think is very, very common.
Thank you.
Could I ask a
Mrs.
question?
Anderson, yes.
What kind of a timeline do you think you're looking at?
Excellent question. So at the state level, this change of ownership has been submitted and is expected to be approved in the next meeting of the Cannabis Control Commission, which happens monthly. If it is on the agenda for the next meeting, that'll be June 9th, in which case the formal transfer of the previous application, control of that license, will be transferred to Zapastella 5. That's why we're before you today. Once that formal transfer is complete, we will apply for the rest of the licenses, the production licenses, and then as a unit advance all of those through the process. It takes about 6 months to get to a provisional license, and from there, it just depends on the build-out. They will come in and inspect us the very next day if we're ready. I can tell you, being in the industry, there's a lot of equipment and capital improvements that go into these buildings. It usually takes about 9 months at minimum to get everything approved. Likely, we will stage the project. Again, kind of hearkening back to the idea of the employee number shifting. Initially, we may just launch the lab and retail, which are the quickest and easiest to build out. Cultivation takes much longer. So we may advance the manufacturing and retail licenses, potentially also the transport licenses, about within a year, with the cultivation to follow as soon as we can get it operational.
Thank you.
We'd like to get the dispenser, if we could, operational, within 6 months, if we could do that, but that's 6 months to a year.
Sure. All right. Anything further from the board?
Yeah,
Mrs.
I have a
Salter.
question. As owners, what type of business experience do any of you have running a business?
Yep, so I've set up many, many labs throughout the states, put together these executive teams, and it is a very difficult skill set. This is a highly regulated market, and it's quickly changing. So I've gotten to know Isaac and Tola very well. They exhibit all the skill sets that you need being able to operate one of these businesses and take it to fruition.
Okay, but they haven't actually owned a business, or have you? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I haven't owned a business.
Okay.
I've owned investment entities and managed investments. I've worked in real estate. I own multiple homes. I rent homes. And so I've done property management. I've worked for large management companies. I've done budgeting and analytics for investment projects and capital investments with building out different real estate. I've done nonprofit management, working in early childhood education, and then doing community development. But I haven't run a small business, but I do have mentors and people I'm working with and other people on the team that have that experience, and I'll be bringing in additional people to help me further that along.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I do see that the abutters were notified. And is there anyone here in the audience this evening who would like to speak to this? And I see and hearing none. All right, anything further from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move the Board of Selectmen authorize the town manager, when appropriate, to enter into a new host community agreement with the Zappa Stella 5 for an adult-use retail marijuana establishment and cultivation, manufacturing, and transport facility to be located at 703 School Street, and at the same time to null and void the current host community agreement with Not Your Grandpa's Tobacco.
Second.
thank you. Made and seconded to approve it. I'm sorry?
What was your question?
Oh.
If I may, I
Yes.
think our hope was that the previous HCA agreement, because that has already been submitted to the state, be transferred to Zappa Stella 5, and permission be given to enter into a new agreement for the remaining licenses, or only cancel and make null the initial agreement after that change of ownership has taken place.
Mr. Salzback?
I think as long as you vote to authorize me to negotiate, if that's agreeable to the board, I can work out something that won't disrupt their business plan, but will still kind of keep an eye on the community's best interests. And I'll bring it back before the board before it's signed into, just to review to make sure there isn't any conflict or anything.
What, just for
Yes.
clarity, and I'm not saying no, I just need to understand, what would be the detriment to you of doing a new agreement as opposed to just transferring?
So it either works in this case. We have one application, the retail application, that has already been submitted and approved at the state level. If you were to take a vote to cancel that agreement before a new agreement has been signed, it could jeopardize that application that's already in process.
For a different facility, you mean?
No, for the site. There's a provisional license currently for retail at this site.
Correct, under the previous name. But my understanding is that the new agreement would be signed, and at that time, once that's signed, then it would be a bookkeeping on our side to null and void the previous one.
Correct, the original one would be dissolved, but we can make sure that when we do that, if this is agreeable to the board, that we coordinate with your team to make sure it doesn't trip you up. The biggest setback would effectively reset the clock with the CCC. They'd be starting from the ground up if we went out of sequence.
Understood, okay. Any questions from the board?
Do you have any reservations, Mr. Town Manager, doing it this way?
No, but I would want to renegotiate an aspect of the HCA to include a sunset clause. Basically, if, and this is something that we can negotiate more later, but effectively if, the business operations don't meet a certain threshold or aren't up and running within 18 months or so, or something along those lines, that the town can claw back the HCA. Reason being, unlike strictly cultivation, for retail sales, we only have three slots. And so, not that this would happen, but if somebody got an HCA for retail and then sat on it for 5 years, that would delay our ability to collect revenue.
Does that sound agreeable?
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, okay. All right, thank you.
Can you ask me a question? Can those, when we issued those 3 permits, and it was 3 years ago that we did it, can those permits be sold as property?
The host community agreements, no. So if the ownership changes, they would have to come, in the same way that I asked this team to come before you, I would do the same. I would have them come before the board again, just because it's a change in the conditions of the agreement.
But it has no monetary value for whoever's holding the permit, because if they did sit on it for 3 or 4 years.
Right, yeah, technically no, so it's not like a situation where if somebody outside of the cannabis industry, if somebody, say, bought a parcel of land and had a large-scale warehouse permitted, and now all of a sudden that parcel of land is worth more because they already went through the permitting process and they have the plans and approvals in hand and they can turn around and sell it. It doesn't work that way.
Well, I think my concern is because we had this issue with a liquor permit before where somebody tried to sell it. They were no longer using it, and they tried to sell it to another business in town for a lot of
A
money.
liquor license, is that what you said? Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but without the board's approval, because we are the issuing authority for the ABCC, it's worthless. I mean, it could be done, and somebody could have that new license, and they could try to open it up, but as soon as somebody realized that they hadn't gone through the process.
Well, the problem is we had to pull it back before
Right.
it could be transferred over. And I guess what I'm trying to avoid is that somebody making a profit off of the town's goodwill.
I understand what you're saying. Are there sunset clauses in the other HCA's that we have?
So unfortunately, no, that wasn't something that the prior manager had implemented, but anything that you have agreed to for the past year has included a sunset clause. So I can't go back and change the existing ones, but when they do inevitably expire, all language going forward is going to have that component.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Lapointe.
one more question. I heard the words saying that you would bring in front of us, if there was another transfer for any of these. Because you would, or because it's required? If somebody else was sitting in your chair, are they required to bring it in front of us, or it's just a you would, because that's how you,
The latter.
it's required?
No, that I would, because that's how I choose.
So if someone else were in your position, it doesn't have to be brought in front of us?
It would be to their benefit to bring it before their bosses.
No, I get that, but
They don't have to. no.
okay, I just wanted to be aware.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So we need to look at what we can put in place as the board to make that a requirement.
And this isn't about you guys particularly.
Yes, sorry.
If I may, I will say
Yes.
that the state does require us to go through a formal process if we are to transfer the ownership at all. And even add, if our team expands, if we add other shareholders, we need to get state approval in order to do that. And part of that is consistent communication with the town. So even if it wasn't required by the manager, we're going to be in close communication with you if there are any ownership changes.
It may be something good to add to the top of the list of the eventual new planning and development director to maybe work with my office to develop some type of formal policy, even though this will technically fill your third available slot, just down the road so that the board has something to point to for the sake of consistency. Just to make sure there's a checklist and you're covering everything as it makes it through the process on the local level. I do agree that on the state level, you're very well protected, but you do want to try to maintain some local control whenever possible.
Yeah, very good point. Thanks, Danielle, yeah. It's Mr. Feldman, correct? Yes. Would you like us to reread the motion? Because I think you said you couldn't hear the motion that Mr. Ward made.
Sorry. Yes, please reread it
Okay.
as it stands now.
Yes, motion's been made. The motion was, Mr. Ward made the motion. I move the Board of Selectmen authorize the town manager, when appropriate, to enter into a new host community agreement with Izapa Stella 5 for an adult use retail marijuana establishment and cultivation, manufacturing, and transport facility to be located at 703 School Street, and at the same time, can we leave that language in there? And at the same time, to null and void the current host community agreement with Not Your Grandpa's Tobacco. So the motion is to approve the request.
Is that actually what you want?
Yeah,
that gets done.
yeah, and it's not till after we're licensed and approved. That's right. It's okay. Yeah.
It will supersede the previous as soon as the town manager and us complete the negotiations. So I believe the motion allows the current agreement.
It says when appropriate, so
When you go to the CCC, everything stays in place? That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're making sure it stays in place. We're making sure not your grandpa stays in place, and we can use a Zappa Stella 5. We're making sure both stay in place.
Do Mr. Stahl and Mr. Feldman want the words transfer in the motion? Is that helpful? Is that one of the holdups?
Yeah, that would fix this.
It completes the same goal, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the same HCA because it's going to have a sunset clause.
Correct. So I would just specify that this vote, can you hear me all right? I would specify that this vote is to just authorize me to go into negotiations. So it's not, the second it happens, nothing goes into effect. It's just authorizing me to negotiate with you, and then ultimately, we're gonna bring that back to the board. And so between now and then, we can iron out the details to make sure that you're having the effect that you want in the process.
That works, yep.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Is that,
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we do have the motion on the floor. I do not believe we had a second. I will second it.
I was trying to determine if it was okay as it was worded for
Okay.
just
or are we going to
negotiation.
just shorten it and authorize him and leave out the last part?
Mr. Ward, might you amend your motion to say that you move that we authorize the town manager to enter into negotiations with Izapa Stella 5?
So I can use the shorter version that you had on your paper to us.
Yes.
But does that mean that we need to, at a future point, authorize you to do something with the old HCA?
He's coming back before us again, I believe, at that point, and we'll authorize it at that time.
Correct.
Okay,
A lot of moving parts.
yeah. Okay. Is the maker of the motion all right with withdrawing that motion as presented?
Yes, I am.
And as a second, I approve to the withdrawal. So we have no motion on the floor. I will entertain a new motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move to authorize the town manager to enter into negotiations with the Zappa Stella 5 for an updated host community agreement pertaining to the property at 703 School Street in Winchendon.
Second.
any further discussion? Acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. Acceptable?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Opposed? Abstain.
I got a pit in my stomach about it. No, I want to see you succeed, and I would like to see your business move forward. I just want to make sure we're doing this properly, is what bothers me.
So would you,
I'll say aye.
oh, okay. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right,
All
thank
right.
you.
You're welcome, gentlemen.
Appreciate
Thanks
your
for bearing
time.
with us.
Yes. All right, next on our agenda, we have the LIHWAP, LIHWAP, low-income housing, water, something, something. Mr. Salzback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you know, we are always looking for ways to try to take some financial burden off of ratepayers whenever possible for water and sewer. DPW Director Coroto brought this to my attention, and we're asking the board to authorize us to enter into the program. It's basically, it mirrors the heat fuel assistance program to a T. Same financial thresholds and guidelines developed by HUD. but it's a water relief program. So for now, it's only been funded for 1 year through the U.S. Congress. It's just over $1 billion in available funds, and we wanted to make sure that Winchendon residents had access to this funding while it still exists, at least for this year, to provide some relief where available. And obviously, if in future years they continue to fund it, we'll continue to pursue that funding.
So would the application process be similar to the fuel assistant
Correct.
program? Okay. Questions, comments from the board?
Madam Chair?
Mr. Ward?
So I'm looking at this agreement. It says it will remain in effect until October 31st, 2022 this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get this thing moving to get this word out to the public.
Correct.
Okay.
Questions, comments from the board?
No, I would like as many people to know about it as soon as possible.
Absolutely. If no further questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward?
I move to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with the New England Farm Workers Council for the purpose of engaging in the low-income household water assistance program.
Second.
Thank you. Made and seconded to authorize town manager to move forward. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Shout it from the rooftops. Old business, we have one item. Update on the former Poland and Streeter schools. Mr. Saltzbat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you are aware, the MVOC project over at the Poland and Streeter schools has been ongoing. At this point, they've gone through the permitting process, and it's a matter of securing the funding through grant and other programs. There was a meeting on January 10th, 2022, where the board authorized me to enter into a purchase and sales agreement for the property using the conditions that were established prior to my arrival in town, basically turning the property over for $5,000. There is a requirement that was in your original agreement that I carried over into the purchase and sales agreement, which basically puts a deadline of June 30th, 2025, so similar sunset situation. But if they're unable to get all of their funding together and unable to get the project moving by then, the town doesn't have to, but it reserves the right to pull the property back and put an RFP out and find somebody that can do it. That said, MVOC has been making really good progress, and they've really been hustling over there. I communicate regularly with their executive director, and they have a substantial portion of their funding in place, and I expect more announcements to come down the road sometime in the coming months. So it's not a concern, but I wanted to put it in there anyway, because the worst thing I could think is the building just sitting there for 10 years while we wait. So with that said, those documents are attached to your packet for your review if you have any questions. I didn't want to sign on, even though the authorization is standing from January 10th, 2022. I wanted to make sure that everything was agreeable to the board, or if there were any concerns or legal-minded eyes that wanted to pick through it and see if there's anything that jumps out at them.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board? All right. I don't see or hear any. And you do not need a formal motion on this, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that that's getting closer to fruition. All right. Next up, we have the town manager's report. Mr. Saltzback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few items I wanted to keep the board up to date on. Just open it real quick. So we are in the final stages of receiving approval for the $1 million in borrowing for the water sewer work on Central Street. That was from your 2019 special town meeting. We had a little delay in getting it off the ground, but at this point, Donna Spellman's done a really good job of getting it up to speed, so we don't anticipate to have any cash flow issues, and it's just the last couple items we need to check off with bond counsel. On the personnel update side of things, we will be conducting first-round interviews for the planning and director role next week. We received a couple good applications, and we will be keeping the posting for the vacancy in the treasurer's office for another round before calling candidates. That's a little trickier of a position to fill. It's pretty specialized work, and there's been a mass exodus over the past decade or so of all the treasurers retiring and not enough new blood, so to speak, going into it. So we want to make sure that we get the right person for the community, though, and the right person for the job, and not just rush and try to fill the seat. So in the meantime, we're in good hands. The Robinson Broadhurst Foundation has approved funding for a part-time rec coordinator for fiscal '23, among other initiatives. I'm going to be sending the full list to the board this week. And I just wanted to highlight and remind the community that the cost of this role will eventually shift over to the town side budget over the coming years. In an agreement that I have with the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation, there was the understanding that, it was a really loud motorcycle, excuse me. There's an understanding that the town eventually would pick up the cost, but the amphitheater project itself was not supposed to directly cost the Winchendon taxpayer. And so the intent is this will give enough time, a couple of years, for the amphitheater to get it up on and stand on its own 2 feet, and it will be self-sufficient. So I'll be compiling a job description for that role, and I'd like to bring it before the board for your review at an upcoming meeting. While it is funded outside of our budget, it's kind of more like a consultant at this phase. But I think once we get to the point where it's partially funded through our budget, it would have to go through a process that we had touched on earlier when we were doing the reorganization downstairs, that we would have some type of public input and allow the community to vote on it in some capacity. So we'll make sure we do that, and I just wanted to start that process. For project updates, Central Street is moving along as scheduled, and we are on target to hit substantial completion for October 2022. The old Murdoch is also moving forward, with the design phase expected to occur throughout the summer, and temporary repairs will be made to the shoring in the meantime. As I'm sure people have probably called, the tarp is blown off, but everything is fine. Tree clearing for the amphitheater at the Winchendon Community Park has been going on over the past 2 weeks now, and we will have the Robinson Broadhurst Foundation in town for a groundbreaking ceremony in the coming months. And so I will notify the board when we do that, and we can all go out there and stomp in the mud and take a nice picture. The Redevelopment Authority will be holding a walkthrough of the properties on Beach Street, so we can start planning for the rehabilitation and revitalization of the buildings down at that intersection. And I've met with our consultant today, actually, to finalize the design for the wayfinding signage initiative. So we'll be putting together an RFP, pretty much specking out the signage and the final logos and everything, and I'll bring that before the board before we officially put it out. But we should have those on order and delivered well before the end of the work on Central Street. And then miscellaneous, town meeting went smoothly. Our clerk's office has filed the votes with the state, and I've met with the planning board chair to discuss the next steps for the signage bylaw. We'll bring that through another review process once we have the new director for planning and economic development on board. That will be something at the top of their list. We'll go through it over the summer and into the fall, potentially bring it back at a special town meeting if the board feels it's something that is more representative of the community. So that is everything for now.
Thank you.
Chair?
Mrs. Anderson?
The Winchendon Community Park Committee, could we at some point have them come before us to explain their progress to date?
I didn't catch the end of that. Sorry. To explain their what?
Progress.
Progress.
Yeah,
yes.
just have them on agenda in the near future to...
Correct. So
Space and, that's gonna be-
since the topic came up, they have voted to, I think as you may recall, they broke into 2 factions, programming committee and an infrastructure committee. And they have met and voted to recombined as one unified committee. And that's something that's going to be coming up on your upcoming agenda. So we can have them all come in at that time and provide updates.
I feel like that's great, but I think you know, after speaking with some of them, they feel like they're working in a vacuum and they don't have our support. And, you know, just having them come and talk to us would be helpful, I think.
Thank you. Anything further on the town manager's report? All right, seeing and hearing that, moving on, we have 3 sets of minutes. The first is from April 11th. There was some questions on that, but you have not received any amendments? So that is before us this evening?
It has since been updated, the one from the 11th.
Beg pardon?
The one from the 11th has since been updated.
Okay.
Is it, do you know if that's in the packet?
It's in
Tamara?
the Dropbox.
Okay, so not the one that says final draft, but the other one?
The one that's labeled amended.
Beg pardon?
The one that's labeled amended is the new one.
Yep, amended final draft.
Okay, all right, I see the word amended now. Are the changes, were there any track changes done, or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've got nothing on my copy that sticks out in red or indicates track changes.
The changes are at the bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4.
3 and 4, thank you very much.
I think we lose the track changes when it gets converted to a PDF.
Oh, okay.
We need to have talk about these stupid iPads.
Okay.
Okay. Barbara, I know that you were concerned about the way that it had come across, so you made those changes too?
I did, and worked with
Okay.
Tamara and Linda,
Okay,
and it wasn't easy on an iPad. My biggest thing was just making sure the concerns that people had were documented.
okay. Did any changes make any significant change to the outcome or anything?
No, there
Was
was
just
no
record.
outcome, it was just, there was no vote, but I just wanted to make sure that their concerns were documented.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else on April 11th? Seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move to approve the Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes of Monday, April 11th, 2022, as presented this evening.
Second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
That's me. I
Thank-
wasn't there.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we have Monday, May 9th, 2022, our regular meeting. This included the joint meeting.
You left me off that one. I did attend that one.
What's on now?
Was it?
Rick fixed it.
Oh, no, mine.
Oh, okay.
He corrected it. Thank you.
Thank you. I was thinking maybe I didn't go, but it sounds familiar, so.
Yeah, I wasn't there that night, but. Questions, comments? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
I
Ward,
move to approve the Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes of Monday, May 9th, 2022, as presented this evening.
Second.
thank you. Made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain. So it does pass 401. Last set, Monday, May 16th. This was our special meeting prior to town meeting. Any questions, comments, or changes?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move to approve the Board of Selectmen's special meeting minutes prior to town meeting on Monday, May 16, 2022, as presented this evening.
Second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much. We do have an executive session scheduled for this evening. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ward,
I move the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session under exemption number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, to return to open session only to adjourn, subject being the Winchendon Fire Department Local 4542, if the
I so-
chair declares.
I so declare.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please. Mrs. Salter?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Lapointe?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. We are in executive session at 8:06.